So we're here to wrap up what has been, I think, a very long day of fruitful and really insightful and informative engagements regarding building this value chain, building it in a manner that is sustainable, building it in a manner that is responsible, building it in a manner that leaves no one behind. We heard from your colleagues who addressed us in the morning to your colleagues who have just addressed us before we went to the coffee break about the importance of partnerships in doing so. So talk to us from where you sit at UNIDO. You deal a lot with partnerships, public-private partnerships. Just give us your experience and understanding of the features of successful PPPs, what they look like and how they're established.
Thank you. Yes, I think it's also important to sort of a little bit define the PPDP that has been mentioned in several interventions already today. So I'm sure everybody's familiar with the public-private partnership model. And the PPDP, which is the public-private development partnerships, is a variation of the PPP.
Sure.
Where in the traditional PPP, the private sector is very often implementing on behalf of the public sector. And the PPDP model, the whole project or program is co-created jointly with the public-private and then the development partner. And there, the resources, the risks, and the goal is shared between all of the partners. And of course, this brings special benefits that the public sector player or entity can, they have their own benefits from job creation, skills development. Then there is the demand of the private sector for skilled labor and possibly addressing skill bottlenecks or business bottlenecks in specific areas. And then there are the benefits for the development sector actor, specifically on accelerating the action towards Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2030.
Okay, thanks so much.
As a nutshell.
No, it's a wonderful nutshell, and thank you so much for setting the framework quite clearly for us. Maybe you can come in, sir, just to tell us at Festo what your experience of the PPDP model has been.
Yeah. So first of all, Festo is an industrial company who have been involved.
Can you hear him? Okay. So Festo is an industrial company?
Festo is an industrial company who have been existing since 1925, so almost 100 years. And we brought to the industry solution and also solution for industrial automation.
Sure.
And after we created Festo-Didactic to bring all our knowledge from the industry to education, just to bridge the gap between education and industry so that people get the knowledge that make them ready for the market. And we have been doing it since, I said, 1925, so almost 100 years. And we have been started implementing PPP projects since 1999. So one standout example of this PPDP project was the H2O Maghreb project that we did in Morocco, in Rabat. So it was a vision of the government of Morocco to set up a training center to reduce the demand in terms of skills for water, because water was a big issue in Morocco. And we as Festo come as a technical partner for this project, and we provided training, innovative solutions like e-learning courses, and also hands-on experience to give the right skill to the people, and also help them to support to solve the problem that they have in terms of water. And this is an example of project we have been involved not only in Morocco, but also in other countries like Uruguay for Caime project. And I think this contribution was also made with, in collaboration with UNIDO. And because Festo is a company that have a big mandate also on the Sustainable Development Goal. So they are 17, but Festo have 7 of them that we work on, and we are stick to that, and we want to solve problems with government. And we line up with the vision of the government, what they want, what is the big issue, the big problem they want to solve. We assess exactly the requirements, so to give the right skill to people for them also to be employable in the market. And I think PPDP is also about giving the opportunity to the people that get trained to be employed, not only trained to be trained, but be trained to be employed, because there is a return on investment that we need to expect toward investment in education. And this comes out when people get employed, because they can pay taxes on the salary. The company also get a lot of gain in productivity, so that is profitable for the country. And also, the country can export good quality product on the market. That also increase the revenue, and this is the expected outcome on investment in education for a country. So our experience was mainly for that, and as I said, in 1999, so we are working around the globe on PPDP project just to support the vision of mainly government in the world.
I think that's fantastic, and I like that you highlight the importance of training for employment, not training just to, have a badge and you don't have access to an opportunity that can improve your livelihood. Jonathan, maybe you can also give us the experience of Hitachi Africa, some of the projects that you're involved in, and also how you are contributing to the training and worker readiness, as it were, in the CRM value chain.
Thank you so much, Fifi. And just allow me to introduce about Hitachi before I go on to the project.
Sure.
So Hitachi Construction Machinery is an original equipment manufacturer responsible for the manufacture and supply of critical heavy equipment, mainly used in the sector that we're discussing today to do with critical mineral resource. If I have to be specific, equipment like dump trucks and excavators are critical in the front line of this extraction. With that said, also I'd like to borrow some of the key deliberations that have come through from morning. I think I'm starting with what Director General spoke about from Tabete in the morning in terms of identifying what are some of the challenges that are coming into play from their perspective as regulatory agencies, but also borrowing from the end users of this equipment. For example, FQM did speak about also the challenges that they face in terms of meeting the demand, in terms of having critical human resource to operate such equipment. So as a supplier of this equipment, then it becomes of primary importance for us to just understand also where do we fit into the equation. At the end of the day, if we're gonna be a critical or responsible partner, then we need to realize, first of all, do we have a role to play into this exercise? Bringing it home to what we're discussing today, what is the role of critical skills development through PPDs in the critical mineral supply chain? We've realized over time that through the investigations that have been done, through studies from UNIDO, for example, one of the things that has come out is that the gap between the technology today through ESG demand does not really speak into what the ground offers. And therefore, we've gone further to, first of all, identify what are these critical skills to be specific. One of them, critically, is the operator skill. As I said, this equipment must be operated. We did realize that through that collaboration and integration, collaboration and discussions, there was a deficit in how much readiness was, workforce readiness was available, both just at the national scale, but specific to the critical mineral resource sector. And since we are kind of in that space also on a daily basis, we felt it was practically our agenda to make sure that we had a role. And DG did mention that one of the challenges they face is capacity building. Okay, whilst they might have that understanding of what they need to do they have the expertise to do this? And in most cases, this expertise lies with the developer of the software or the particular equipment. So we came into this project with that in mind, and through that experience, we've had an opportunity to understand just deeper what it means to prepare someone for workforce readiness, both at inception and also upskilling level. From an upskilling point of view, we do regularly collaborate with private sector themselves, the end users, for example, the mining industry. And you see that they have made significant inroads into trying to invest within the skill themselves in trying to mitigate the short to medium term measures, whilst they look at the opportunities that arise into long-term development. In our PPD model, we're trying to kind of tackle both sides of a coin, looking at short to medium term measures, but also looking at the future. How do we guarantee that 10 years from now, we will still be able to meet the demand that this ESG supply chain demand also forces on the equipment. So it's a big challenge, but also it gives us an opportunity to leverage on that collaboration, borrowing on various expertise from UNIDO, for example, coming with their expertise in understanding how to manage these projects. As private sector, how do we then supply the critical information and the capacity building that we can offer to organizations like Taveta, but also learning from the end users and what are some of the challenges where we can meet. Because at the end of the day, I think it's a responsibility for everyone to have a critical say into that. So it's a great opportunity. I think it's sustainable and it offers great advantages to all the players within the supply chain, because you get a chance to then showcase what you can do and just add value at that point to address the challenges that exist.
Okay. Okay, a very a detailed there and wholesome response. Thanks so much. Daniel?
Well, first of all, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to thank the UNIDO team and the SIDA team and the technical team for a great job. Allowing us to share experiences is always a great moment as far as I'm concerned. You probably noticed my last name is Brodeur. So I'm from the French part of Canada, so bear with me. Sometimes my English sounds like Fringlish. So please. Okay, so the short answer is we have no experience with PPDP. We're actually a new kid on the block. Sure. Alteo is not a new company, it's a 130 years old company, but we're new in Guinea. And we have this project, and we needed some help. And UNIDO was a well-kept secret. I've been 18 years in the mining industry, and I've heard them recently. So we're kind of on our first date. We're
How's it going?
We're building this relationship. So I'll get into more details as we go on. But it's new, and it's for us, it's the solution to what we're aiming.
Okay, okay, no, but maybe you can actually get into the detail right now, if you will. As you said, early days of the relationship, we're hoping it maybe can turn to a marriage, but how's it going?
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for. Well, first of all, Guinea-Conakry, for those who are not too familiar with the country and its resources, is the second largest exporter of bauxite, and it has the highest grade of bauxite. They're going through, I mean, the government has been very firm about all the mining operators to start refining the bauxite, give added value. And Alteo and UMSI, which is the mother company, it's an international company based in Guinea-Conakry, merged, and they wanted to be the first in line to do so. And a year and a half ago, we started our relationship, another one. I'm polygame.
My goodness, you did say you're French.
And so they said we have this project, and we want to build this refinery, and we need help. So the first thing we did is actually, what are our needs? I mean, we're going to build a refinery. What do we need in terms of resources, job profiles, and so forth? So we went through this exercise. This is in a nutshell, all right? This is a year of work trying to summarize it in 5 minutes. So once we knew what we needed in terms of human resources and in terms of training, because after we identified all the job profiles, we prepared referential, I have it in here in French, in English. We prepared the skills framework. So we know exactly what are the competencies we were looking for. Now, we knew that we had to set up a training center. It's a new industry. I mean, there's one small refinery in Guinea-Conakry, and we know we're not going to be the last to open a refinery. So we immediately thought of a training center or an institute for that specific area. And there's a lot of intricacies behind setting this up. And this is when we asked our colleagues in Vienna if they could help us. And that's how we started to date.
And they said yes, right? Wonderful. Chie, maybe if I can ask you to actually go back to some of the insights that Jonathan was sharing about the projects that are going over there, that are going on there at Hitachi Africa. And maybe if you can, as you build on the points that he made, just also share your broader view as UNIDO of some of the benefits of these partnerships as you've seen them, practical examples maybe, and the relevance for stakeholders specifically in the CRM sector.
Okay, thank you so much, Fifi. I'll start with the broader picture maybe.
Sure.
And so the PPDP projects that I think my colleagues here have just mentioned, they are basically designed to try to enhance local skills development systems to respond to the needs of the industry players and also the needs of the youth, the local youth who are looking for employment opportunities. And how we do that is by we try to institutionalize new ways of developing curricula that is in collaboration with private sector companies like yourselves here. And also upgrading the local vocational training centers into centers of excellence for specific skills areas that we are supporting. And we do that by upgrading the facilities, their training facilities, also the equipment that goes in to ensure that they are modern and also industry standards. We also train the trainers with the kind of training models that the kind of our partner companies are actually supporting us with. So they actually gain industry relevant skills that they can then impart on the youth that they are training. And then so we basically take that curriculum and the centers of excellence that we are developing to then deliver training to young people. And the last part of this is what Angora was mentioning also earlier, is that we also support career service systems to be more improved so that we can effectively support the young people's transition from training to the world of work, where their skills are being demanded by the private sector and industries there. And maybe just to then go a bit into the project that Jonathan was mentioning earlier, this is a partnership project with the government of Japan and Hitachi Construction Machinery and with the Zambian government and ourselves. And this model, the PPDP model, is allowing us to develop a skilled workforce for operators, as Jonathan mentioned, in the upstream of the CRM value chain that we have been discussing today. And this is important as mining operations in the country expand, and the government has this target to increase copper production in the country to 3 million metric tons by 2031. So there is an increased demand of operators who can competently and also responsibly operate the machines that are required in the extraction process. And really, the partnership is really key here because, as Jonathan was mentioning, and I think other speakers were mentioning, private sector companies have the kind of insights into what are the skills that are needed and how they are evolving, because I think that change is happening really fast. And so on that side, and also then the public sector will also have, are interested in developing a skilled workforce to support the mining industry's growth, and also the skills development systems that support that growth. And then the development partners are there to also, who are interested in supporting the Zambian government's initiatives and the industries that are working here to achieve their objectives. So, and I think this is really key, that partnership in enabling us to effectively develop the workforce and to, I think, to solve the kind of the problem of the labor market, where industries are demanding local skills and local people of trying to find jobs. And maybe just as a last point, so the PPDP model is our way of saying private sector engagement in TVET governance and delivery really works. So we're trying to create a proof of concept here to say this works and to encourage more private sector players to actually get involved in engaging with the skills development system. And so I think this is really important, because I think at the conceptual level we understand that like PPPs in TVETs is good, but I think to actually create concrete cases where this is working, I think is key to crowding in more to increase the uptake of private public-private partnerships in skills development.
Sure. No, thank you so much. Thanks so much for that intervention, Chair. And I suppose maybe if we stick to Daniel's analogy of this being a marriage, and anyone who has been in a relationship will know that coming together as parties who are united in a vision is not always easy, and particularly it's not always easy to stay the course. So, Jonathan, maybe to come back to you, I mean, you did speak about the work quite extensively that is happening over at Hitachi with your partners, but can you maybe expand on areas of friction that you've experienced in these PPDP models, and just, I suppose more importantly, share some insights in how frictions and potential future frictions can be overcome in successfully implementing such models?
Yeah, thank you. I think you introduced it quite well, the friction expected in the marriage. So, and I'll focus on that particular challenge arising from the fact that the PPD model brings together different players to the table. For example, when we started the project, we did a concept note closely with UNIDO, but that was just the two parties. But as we signed the MOU to start implementing the project, we had to bring in the greater majority of the stakeholders that will ensure that this project succeeds. But with that comes now the different divergent views and interests. For example, we have government represented from the public sector through the Ministry of Science and Technology, the implementing agency like TVETA, who are the regulators, and then of course the institutions themselves like KVTC, with different perspective of how this particular marriage could work. But critical also is the fact that we need to stay on course and ensure that the well-formed outcomes are realized in terms of, do we actually answer to the needs of the industry? And I remember specifically emphasizing this need to say, we need to pay attention to, first of all, the national trajectory in terms of what is it demanding at the moment. Because at the end of the day, yes, it's one thing to have this collaboration, but in 4 years' time or 5 years' time, once this project is done, we will be judged by how much of that has influenced or impact it has had, both on the social side of things, but also at the national level. Does it influence how the skills development or provision in Zambia for long-term solutions is provided? So it's an issue of consensus between partners, but also focusing on whether we remain in course. So it's kind of agreeing to disagree on certain elements, but making sure that you stay focused on deliverables, which are the end game in terms of whether this particular skill is responsive to the actual demands of that. So it has required us to be a bit patient with different stakeholders because of different processes and procedures. For example, government has its own processes, for example, that require a lot of procedures in terms of approvals. We would like a certain project to be done within a certain time frame, but that might not be possible, for example. And we tend to get a bit frustrated into whether we'll get what we've a return on our investment and time that we are investing in that. We also need to listen to the expatriates like UNIDO in terms of whether our expectations can be accommodated and still be in line with correct project implementation procedures. So that is the biggest challenge, to create consensus, but at the same time making sure that you don't leave anyone out, because if we went ahead and did this project in a rush, for example, without giving an ear to all the stakeholders, again, the danger would be that it comes on white elephant with very little uptake because people can't buy into what we're trying to do. So it borders more onto what are we willing to sacrifice but for the greater good, and where can we leverage. So some of it is common in some of the partners, and it's easy to agree on those factors. But some of it might require great more consultation and shift from the original plan. I remember even just coming up with a name of the project was a problem. We had to change it. Initially, we called it heavy construction project, and we argued, said, no, construction means, from the Zambian perspective, you are speaking to only a certain type of equipment. It's going to create a big confusion around it. can we just change it to heavy equipment? It took almost 3 months to just wind up that debate. But eventually that consensus was reached to say, look, let's not look at it from where this particular person is looking, but let's also understand what's the impact of that outcome.
Sure.
So those variables means that we have to be a bit flexible. All the partners must be a bit flexible, but also remain, of course, a bit patient to understand all the various elements at play. Happy that it hasn't affected how we've gone to implement the project. But essentially, I think most PPDs will rely heavily also on the involvement of the public sector, because they are the recipients of this benefit at the end of the day, TVET institution, and then the students that will take this up. So we hope that going forward, if any public company or private sector should take up such an undertaking, they need to understand all these parameters that come into play. We didn't understand it at first, but now we're almost experts because every day we have Chie, and we can now safely boast about, okay, we understand now that this direction. Now we are also sharing this information back to the cooperatives and saying, look, I think the opportunities are there. We just need to know which direction we can go into, because maybe from our perspective as private sector alone, it's not achievable.
Sure.
We have specific examples, like I mentioned earlier. Some of the people in the extractive industry have ended up investing in their own training facilities, for example. And it's only because you want to make sure that your perspective is clear in that. But it's only specific to the current needs of the workforce. Currently, we are doing a proof of concept with First Quantum Minerals about the BEV. That will be the first ever electric heavy dump truck. And it's been already released and manufactured by Hitachi and operating in Zambia at First Quantum Consumption. Already the shift in terms of what we're discussing today is already going, drifting from us. So it then means that we need to regularly integrate these concepts as they develop, but also means that all players must be ready to be responsible, flexible as these changes occur in that aspect.
No, fantastic, and thank you for sharing those learnings. And I think, Daniel, such learnings are particularly maybe useful for players like yourselves, as you did say that it's early days in your experience of the PPDP models, and you've got players who have got a little bit more experience in that regard. I don't also take for granted the importance of, or the difficulty thereof, of naming something. I mean, you hear parents also talking about the debate that goes on to say what the name of their babies are. They obviously don't have 3 months. They need to register the name, you know, within, I don't know how long it takes to have it registered by, but it's commendable. That communication, and I suppose that sitting at the table and going through issues is something that can help you also circumvent them. Maybe you can talk to us about your early experiences that you are having, and just your thoughts on strategies such as communication, and perhaps helping to circumvent challenges that you're experiencing, or any other tools that you're employing in that regard.
Wow, that's a loaded question.
Sorry.
So when we went through the whole process of elaborating our organizational structure and finding out, you know, exactly how many job profiles are involved, and the skills framework, we saw that this will be a large project, because the whole industry is changing. The refinery, more specifically, Alumina refinery, there's going to be plenty. We did not want to be in a silo. We thought it was a good opportunity to rally all the stakeholders. However, when you start working with multiple ministries, you've got delicate feet you do not want to step on. You want to make sure that everybody aligns with you, because it can be tricky. And I've been involved in several projects where, you know, we had to do some problem management, if you want. So when we approached UNIDO, that's the first thing they said, listen, you know, we're going to propose to establish a public-private development partnership around those 2 axes. So that first axis is, of course, establishing that training center, that institute. But we reminded them, we want that institute to be linked to the refinery sector, to the Alumina sector, not to Alteo. We want this to be a Guinean project for the Guinean industry. So that was super important. We wanted to be a silent partner. So they proposed this public-private development partnership, which was perfect. But we did not have, let's say, the knowledge or the finesse to work with so many different stakeholders. And that's where we really called upon that expertise. I mean, United Nations, they're masters in balancing acts, and you know, us industrial, we're not too good at that. We're pretty pragmatic, so we needed that. We needed that to help us, and we're at the first stage, and we've rallied all of the different ministries, which is a big feat, I can tell you that. That's a first step. Now, my colleagues at UNIDO are going to start working on the, in Conakry, visiting the other stakeholders, which are the industrial partners. So we believe this is a cost-effective, it will have more impact on growth, it will uplift the whole educational system. But if you work in a silo, you're just working for one part. And that's why we really want this PPD to work.
And I think to that point, in as much as you talk about the finesse of balancing all stakeholder needs in the equation, I do believe that when stakeholders come together, they actually come together for the long haul. No one comes in to quit, as it were, just sticking to your analogy of the relationship. And I think that at the core is the outcome of what wants to be achieved. And that's what helps role players stay together to say, okay, but this is the outcome. And Angora, you spoke about the outcome initially in terms of the training programs that ensured or that helped to ensure that, you know, the trainees actually got jobs, were ready for the workplace. But maybe as you expand on that point, you can also share your reflections of managing conflict and managing friction, particularly when it does come to trying to better integrate all these learnings in the CRM models, learnings that you do get from the PPDPs.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for the question. I think there is something we must agree, all of us, that sustainability can be divided in three areas. We have economy, ecology, and also social issue. While talking about economy, we need to be sure that the investment we are making into a project, we have a return on investment. That's why, first of all, we decided to not position ourselves only for technology providers, but also we have priority focus on SDG. And towards economy, we built a concept that we called fact centers. This is first authorized center training. So where we put a standard, a norm that every center should have just in the hand to be self-financing. So in this fact, there is audit that is carried on each 2 years to maintain the standards of education that is put in these kind of centers. So for me, part of the economy, we need also to have a better return on investment of the money that we put into the project. For ecology, we make sure that into the curricula, we figure out all the necessary skills for renewable energy. So energy efficiency, clean water, and water treatment is part also our portfolio. So we put more emphasis on these skills for also the trainee get also the skill set to have the impact, to know better the impact on climate action. And in terms of social issue, like taking the PPDP project in Morocco, 70% of the graduates were women. So we solve a gender issue of technician in water technology in Morocco, for example. So seeing a lot of women coming and get graduate in technical skills where men dominate at most is something that we can say this is impactful. And I think we, as Festo, has contributed to this the project and in this sense. And for me, this is what we need to see as a company like us, to not just provide solution and go, but we need also to transfer technology. And people are not just trained to use machineries, to use equipment, but then need also to understand the technology behind. Because if they understand the technology, it'll be easy for them also to create their own equipment with the available resources that they have. And this is also a sustainable way to see the things. And I think this way of having this kind of training also can lead to Africans, the world also to see those critical material, not just, yes, we just extract them and we just ship them, but we understand what to do with that. Because this is important for not only the country, it's important for the population, and it's important for the rest of the world. But what are we doing with that? And first of all, I've been working in the mining sector since a while, so we developed a comprehensive portfolio on our solution for mining industry, where we have mineral processing, mining extraction, and also all the energy-related fields. So this portfolio, this guideline is available on the website.
Sure.
So we collaborated a lot in Africa, in different countries with this project. In South Africa, in Namibia, even in Guinea, with a lot of the mining company there, and also just recently in Mali. And I think we are proud of it because we are not just giving equipment, but we are also contributed to Africa to be industrialized. And this is a part of our goal to reaching the SDG 9 on innovation, infrastructure, and also industry.
Okay, now Angora, thank you so much, and we can hear the pride coming through in your voice. Emmi, just to wrap things up with you now, double-clicking on what Angora was mentioning regarding the project in Morocco and some of the achievements when it does come to addressing the gender balance in a male-dominated world. I mean, this is essentially your space, but how would you like us to think about promoting PPDPs with greater gender consciousness in being more impactful and effective, particularly in this value chain that we're talking about of CRMs?
Thank you. There has been some excellent discussions on the gender sides already today, and as a fellow engineer, I want to acknowledge the amazing role models and pioneers that have been talking already here today on the industry. I feel like the challenges for women in any specific industry is there's two sides to it. First, how do you get women to come to the industry, enter the industry, and then how do you keep the women that are already in the industry there? And perhaps especially on the first part of how do you get women to participate, the PPDPs that LKDF has, they have been doing an excellent job with it. What Angora mentioned in the H2O Maghreb, their targeted outreach and showcasing role models have been excellent. And the numbers on gender parity have been really hard work, and then the results follow on it.
Sure.
And then perhaps we could keep on paying more attention on how do we keep the women that are in the industry or that we get into the industry by paying more and more attention to what are the challenges that they are facing. Do they have equal opportunities in advancement? We don't have a lot of women in operational management and line management roles. How do we get women more there? Are there any specific challenges related to unpaid care work or enabling working environment that we can work together on? And perhaps those are the spaces where we can work more with the PPDPs. But also I have to mention that what Jonathan was mentioning about the Hitachi Japan UNIDO project, there has been excellent numbers also there, with over 1/3 of the participants being women, and in heavy industry field, that's a number that even countries in the global north could take example of. And there's also, as we have fellow Swedes here, we have some excellent projects, for example, in Ethiopia with SIDA and Volvo that have a very strong gender focus, and especially on the outreach part. Okay. So perhaps we could shift more towards the enabling work environment in our projects.
Okay, okay, no, it is great to hear examples of where progress is being achieved. Not to understate the landscape and where progress still remains, but it's nice to the point that Lauren was making in her intervention a little bit earlier, to not just focus on what's not working or the difficulties, but also look at the opportunities, and to the point that Ian also mentioned, turning the risks into rewards. Chie, I know you're going to stay with us on the panel to wrap up the second part, but any final thoughts for this first part for you, or should we save the juice for the second part?
I just want to thank everyone, and I think it was really great to hear the different stories from the different, also the sectors that we are working with as well. And I think the encouraging remarks from Emmi at the end with regard to gender, because I think this is something that we are all watching, and in our projects to increase more women to be interested, I think, in these sectors, and then also to enroll, and then also to get jobs at the end of the day. And just maybe the last point is that we also have here in the exhibition booth one of our female trainers at Kikwe Vocational Training Center, who is there to also demonstrate some skills on heavy equipment operation. So I think she's also a good model for us, for students, when they come in and they see this female role model, that it gives them also this like push and encouragement to say that they can also do this job. So yes, with that I would save my other remarks for the next session.
Okay, no, thank you.
Had lunch with her.
Okay, very good.
A wonderful point on which to conclude here, but thanks to all of you once again, and just a warm applause for them if you still have some energy in your hands. Sweden's perspective: how do development actors support PPDPs to promote responsible practices in Africa's CRM sector?
Okay, thank you for inviting me. I work at the Swedish Embassy in Lusaka, and mainly in, well, almost 100% with development corporations. So I've been, my experience comes from what I've been doing within the organization of SIDA. The Swedish, what are we doing in Sweden, and how are we supporting, how Sweden supporting these kinds of initiatives? Well, there are several actors involved. Of course, it's the private sector. For instance, what we are discussing there could be multilateral organizations and companies like Volvo, who want to entering a new market and want to grow in that market. And then there are, of course, there are government agencies or parastatal agencies who support that kind of engagement by the private sector. And then it's SIDA who's supporting international development corporations. So we try to work together as a Team Sweden. So I'd like to start by saying that why are we doing this? Why is the governmental agencies supporting private sector? Well, we're only one of several countries who do that, and we understand the need for the private sector to engage and work close. We would need to work closely to them in order to mobilizing additional resources and sharing financial risks. And of course, when it comes to the major companies who want to enter in a market, we need their transfer of technology, innovation, and knowledge. That's what we are doing. So these are one of many fundamental reasons for SIDA to more increasingly supporting collaboration with the private sector. And that is not least evident through a new development cooperation strategy that we received earlier this year, which, among other things, emphasizes the the strengthening of Zambia's prospects for enterprising and trade, increased access to inclusive markets and productive employment. These are just a few things that are important. And we are committed to ensuring that the extraction and use of critical raw materials is done in a social and environmentally friendly way, hence aligned with the ESG priorities. So how are we doing that? Well, I hope I will be able to come to that shortly. But we like to work focusing on PPDP partnership here in Zambia, and we have done that through a Zambita program that I think you all know about, for the sake of promoting a number of vital targets in addition to those which is the effect of private sector participation already mentioned. And to be very brief, because I think we need to be, the first thing is enhanced youth employability. This is one of the key aspects, or the main aspect for entering into PDP programs of this kind. And that is done through TV training, through on-the-job training, internships, and collaboration with local companies and institutions to enhance their capabilities and competence and capacity. Another one being promoting local expertise and the creation of a center of excellence, which is in this case is the NORTEC Technical College, by developing training programs, curricula designed to equip young men and women with the skills that are needed by the industry.
Okay,
So
maybe we actually hear a little bit more from NORTEC then.
Yeah.
In terms of the approach that institutions, TVET institutions such as yourself, are taking to meet the industry needs.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe just to give a short background about NORTEC,
Sure.
that this is one of the oldest engineering training colleges that we have in the country. It's over 60 years in engineering training, and basically set up to supply the engineering skills for the mining sector. And so our core engineering programs have been in mechanical engineering, automotive engineering, and also automotive engineering. And over the years, of course, in order for us to achieve the right skills, it has not been easy because, as you know, that engineering is not cheap. To train well-skilled graduates, you need to invest a lot. And we are a government institution, wholly owned by government, and that's why it becomes very imperative that we have partners in this case. Some of the key areas that pose a challenge to us who are in the engineering training program, the issues that have already been articulated to the issues of curriculum development. I think the director, Teveta, did mention that curriculum is more like a moving target. As soon as you finish validating the curriculum, already industry is saying it's outdated, and you're graduating students, who do not meet our requirement. And it's really a challenge for us as an institution, or as engineering training institution, because you want to produce somebody who's hands-on, somebody who's able to work on the equipment, because as an engineering institution, training manager from FQM was saying, I want people who can maintain my equipment, who can repair my equipment. It means we need to have that equipment in the institution if we're going to meet the standards that the demand sector is requiring. We are supplying the skills. Now those who are taking the skills, they want to see that this graduate is able to repair, is able to maintain that equipment, whether it's a mining equipment or it's a processing equipment. So it means we need to have it in the institution.
Or you do things differently, where you partner in some way, so that when you're teaching the maintaining of equipment, the students go over to Molengo.
Exactly.
And you too.
Yes, about 2 months ago, we signed an MOU with First Quantum, basically to speak to those areas that we need solid, relationships between us as a training institution and them as the mining industry that needs our graduates. And we need them to actively participate in the training program, just like was said earlier on, that they are participating in curriculum development, but also they need to have an active role in the way we are training. Well, good for Mopani because they own the mine, so they own the institution, so they have easy access to equipment. But us, we are purely a government institution, and our core mandate is just purely training. So, but we need that collaboration with industry so that we can have access to their equipment. And such MOUs that we signed with FQM are key to achieving quality in our training. So without that collaboration with industry, then we always have this complaint that you're training half-baked, graduates. That skills gap will always be there. But these are the measures that we are taking through these collaborations. But I think the beauty about this all is the public development partnership that is in the name of Zamita, that we have, been, involved in for the past 10 years. What has brought that to where we are as Northern Technical College is the beauty we see is what is it that we have benefited from there. In this partnership, we have quite a number of developments in the institution. First of all, the partners that we have there is CEDA, as you have heard. We have Volvo, and we have UNIDO as well. But what has Volvo brought into the institution? They have brought in equipment that ordinarily would not have as an institution. Heavy investment in terms of equipment so that the students now can have access to that equipment, so that even as we are training them at least on most of the equipment that they'll be able to find in the industry. Madam Lenga from FQM again talked about you're training a student who's basically mechanical and then they find an electromechanical equipment. Again, through the partnership, Zamita, we're able to develop the diploma in heavy equipment engineering that she talked about, which now brings out those aspects of combining mechanical and electrical systems so that our graduates are able to fit in with what industry is demanding. Okay. So that collaboration is very, very important. But again, we can't do it alone. So the public-private development partnership becomes very key, in this case. And that's why I think would want to really indicate that this is a success story and this is what needs to be promoted. Okay. And this is what we need to be doing, as especially us as government institutions, in order for us to be able to meet the right training standards that industry is asking for. Okay,
it does sound like you do have a few partnerships on the go, and I suppose the point that you are making, there's plenty of opportunity for more. But Christopher, maybe you can share your reflections regarding Mopani Copper Mine, because the sentiment that was shared was though it's easier for you to run your training center and prepare your workers and prepare students. Is that the case? And what is your experience, I suppose, in making your curriculum, your programs in touch with the times?
Good afternoon, everyone. I suppose the answer to the first part of your question is I wish. Yeah. So I think what works for us is the model we've been able to develop that comes from the genesis of MCTC. The way that the training center came about, I think, is quite important because it answers quite a lot of the questions we're asking here. Mopani basically was embarking on a really aggressive expansion program, which was going to be using quite a lot of new technology that we hadn't been using before. And it was pretty clear that the technology and skills requirements were going to be very different from anything we'd used before. So it just made logical sense that we begin to develop skills at the same time as we're embarking on these expansion projects. So we set up a training center that uses a competence-based model. Now, what that means is, if you look at one of our full-time courses, it will be running for about 2.5 years. The first 3 months are spent in a classroom environment, so we can set the basics, have people understand what the fundamentals are. The next 3 months are spent in our workshops, and this is where perhaps the institution has had better benefit than the government-funded ones, because being mine-backed, we do have quite a lot of equipment that you would not normally find in a training institution.
Okay.
So the students spend 3 months practical hands-on training on actual equipment and also on training simulators as well. And then the next 3 months of that program is spent in industry, and again, this is where we have it easier because we do have mothership behind us, so we're able to just pick up our students and attach them to the various plants, depending on their skill set and or discipline. We are aware that quite a lot of our counterparts in the tethered sector actually do struggle with that, to actually just find placement opportunities for their students. So that's a little bit easier for us. And then after they're done with that 3 months, we then do the whole thing over again, racking it up a notch. So the competence-based model does help us significantly. Now, the key to all this is industrial placement. This is where really the rubber meets the road, because as a training institution, it's very difficult to keep lockstep with what's happening in industry. Industry is very dynamic. Like our speaker said this morning, we're linear, they're exponential. So even at MCTC, we do kind of lose ground. So where we do catch up is with the industrial placement. When we take our students into the plant, they discover this new equipment, they become refamiliarized with the new equipment, then when they come back, we all move up a notch. So that's basically how it works, but it is a challenge even for us. So the key phrase for us is keep it relevant, and the way we do that is really attending events like these, find out what other people are doing and what they're talking about, because it's quite easy to rest on one's laurels and basically go into navel gazing, because when you're on the inside looking in, you don't know what's happening out there, so you're comfortable that everything is A-okay until you come out and suddenly Martin here is talking advanced equipment and hybrid machines, and I'm looking at my old diesel-powered machines. I'm thinking, when did that happen? We've been leapfrog. There's a lot of that that's going to happen. So we address that by looking at the scope of companies that we approach for industrial placement. So it's not just Mopani, because otherwise we basically are a Mopani looking into Mopani, and we basically get left behind. So we do look at other companies and place our students there. So basically there's a stream there for influx of new information.
Okay, no, that's very, it's good to know what to do, as you say, to remain future fit and relevant. Crispin, what's your experience as well, just regarding how the preparation of students is happening over on your end, and challenges, the difficulties, or perhaps what's working in trying to prepare and integrate these students in the CRM value chain?
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Moderator. With KVTC, let me first of all start by probably giving just a brief background of Kitwe Vocational Training Center. Yeah, this is an institution which is wholly owned by the government. It came into existence in 1998 to offer skills training to specifically the youth in vocational training. The programs that we offer range from mechanical fitting, power electrical, automotive mechanics, heavy equipment repair, and now the newly introduced heavy equipment operator training. Yeah, I think for us, what we've been trying to do to remain relevant in channeling our graduates into society is by way of, first and foremost, recruiting well-qualified and experienced lecturers. And that is not enough. We've also got a strong policy on CPD, where our trainers undergo some continuous professional development training capacity. Yeah, and we are also lucky that KVTC was an institution which was chosen to undertake the heavy equipment operator training, yeah, where the government of the Republic of Zambia partnered with the government of Japan and also Hitachi as well as UNIDO. Yeah, from this partnership, actually, KVTC has benefited a lot in the sense that we have the state-of-the-art equipment. We have the front-end loader, which was procured from Hitachi. We have the modern dump truck, which we are yet to get from Scania. And we also have the excavator, which was supplied by Hitachi. Yeah, now, the thing is that that we are getting this equipment from Hitachi, the project, in its wisdom, they've made sure that our trainers are trained by the original equipment manufacturers. As I'm talking right now, our trainers have received training both locally and internationally, that is overseas, just to come and make sure that we have a fully baked heavy equipment operator. To that fact, again, I think I give salutation to the training authority for developing a curriculum which is responsive to industry's expectation. And how they handled it, I think that was the best to do it. I mean, I was part of it. We saw industry coming on board. Yes, Mopani was, I can attest to that. We had Lumwan would speak to their expectation. Sure. Yes, but now with the challenges, I think I wouldn't want to bore you by repeating what Principal NORTEC has already said. Actually, the challenges are almost the same. Yeah, we face the same challenges, but we really appreciate that PPDP has come on board, and through this we are able to have these linkages. I think some of the answers are even being solved just right now here. I think our problems have been heard. So those who have the solutions, please, we are here. We can meet and then we can exchange numbers so that we can bury some of these things. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, you're introducing a different kind of energy into the room right now at a time I think is very welcomed. You, notwithstanding the difficulties that you did say you're experiencing, I do like the emphasis on the elements that are working and the encouraging tone that you're bringing to the discussion. Chie, I'm going to come to you in just a short while as we prepare to wrap things up. But I also just want to go to our colleague who is joining us virtually right now. Charlotte, I do believe that you're there, and I wonder if you have anything different to share in terms of what the work Inabal is doing over in the DRC and your experience in supporting skills development in the sector over there. We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Welcome.
So yes, indeed. Thanks a lot for inviting me, for inviting Enable. When it comes to skills development in the critical raw materials sector, I think we can talk about multiple challenges, but Enable sees them as drivers for change, which reinforces the role and responsibility of development cooperation in this, let's say, critical sector. So where we find our key challenges and responsibilities, I would summarize them as follows. Like, first, you have the gap between skills development and employment, which has been mentioned a lot of times before. There is a mismatch between the skilling offer and the needs that stem from the market, and so skills development is not a one-way street. All partners have their role to play to bridge with employment, and it requires really a change in thinking and program design that takes the needs from the private sector as a starting point. Second, you have deficits over which the critical raw materials sector has been characterized in terms of decent work and social protection, but also environmental protection. And so specifically messages like not enough protection from occupational safety and health, dangerous working conditions, informal work and low wages, not sufficient social protection measures in place can lead to significant challenges, and thereby also reinforces our role. And finally, to the third point, it comes to local economic and regulatory conditions. So it's a reality that that market dynamics, economy and regulation don't always play in favor of entrepreneurs, workers, and the young future workforce. Often a challenge is not only missing regulation, but also sensitization, employment, and enforcement. There, Annabelle works really on the double anchorage level as a partner with the public sector to enhance these conditions. So in summary, Development Corporation has this responsibility to ensure skills development leads to employment first, but also that this employment foster decent work, social and environmental protection in critical raw material sector. And then finally, to promote positive regulatory conditions for skills development, employment, and green growth. And I can come up with specific case examples if relevant to illustrate how we put these three actions into work.
Okay, so maybe I'll ask you to reserve those case examples for your concluding remarks. We are going to be going into them in just a short while. We do have 10 minutes or so left for this discussion. And perhaps, Chie, you can lead us in this last part of the journey that we have embarked on for the day as we do head into the afternoon. We have heard from you already as UNIDO, the multiple PPD projects that you are involved in, working with the TVET institutions, working with private sector players that we heard from. Could you share, though, how UNIDO is fostering the industry-relevant skills through these collaborations and the role that the private sector is supporting CRM skills development? And perhaps, I mean, even in how you are fostering it, it will probably going forward in future will be through the launch of this curriculum that you have launched. As UNIDO, we heard a little bit from Juan Pablo, but in terms of the work that you are already doing right now, can you just share a little bit about those collaborations and the learnings and key takeaways?
Sure. I think so. So as I mentioned before, like basically, like we are really trying to promote for more industry, more private sector and industry players to be more involved in the TVET space. And maybe I can elaborate a bit on the details of that, or how that collaboration really works. And so really there's private sector companies like Hitachi, we had also Festo here, also Alteo, and also not here with us, but Volvo, who is also a very important partner for us, amongst others who are also like actually contributing, not on a formal basis, but also on an informal basis, seeing what the work we are doing is relevant for them as well. And you know, what they're doing is they're providing this like really required this market insights into the skills that are required. This part I mentioned a little bit earlier, and I'm repeating myself, but like I think this is really key because that's a starting point for us. And so we want to really know what are the skill needs in the market and how are they evolving. And they have all of this to provide inputs into the curriculum design. So the curriculum that we have been developing together with TVET has been a process where all of these players come together to detail out, first of all, the kind of job profiles that are required, and also the specific competencies that they need to achieve. So this is all being done through multiple rounds of collaborative processes before it has been finalized, validated, and also accredited now with TVET, and that now can be nationally used on a national scale, not just for NORTEC and KVTC, but to also be able to benefit other training institutions within Zambia. So that's a little bit on the training curriculum side. And then I think on the and maybe also going to the point that Martin mentioned about these training aids and equipment that are really quite pricey, especially in the technical fields that we are working in. In Zambia, we are working with heavy equipment repair and also maintenance and repair of trucks and commercial vehicles, as well as operators of these heavy equipment. And we have been very fortunate to have the support of private sector companies like Volvo and also Hitachi to provide some of these things that I think alone it would be difficult for NORTEC and KVTC, but also on development partner side to provide everything. So this part on the private sector providing this has been very instrumental and of very much value added. And we were just yesterday organizing a donation ceremony for some equipment that Hitachi has provided to us. These are some cut sections of the inner workings of heavy equipment, and that actually enhance the learning experience for the students. They understand deeply about how it works. So when they come to operate that as well, they have that deep understanding for troubleshooting purposes and basic maintenance and repair. So I think that in those areas, I think, and maybe I would also like to recognize, I think FQM is also donating a simulator for us that I think together with Hitachi, which is really also has a very high price tag that we would not have been able to procure alone. So these kind of collaborations are really supporting to enhance the learning environment for the students. And then I think we also, I think Crispin Tacoma here has also mentioned about, them extending their training facilities to train trainers from these institutions. And these training facilities are being used to train their own staff or the clients. So this is, we're able to train trainers from KVTC or from NORTEC or from other BTCs to get trained by industry standard trainers and in industry standard learning environment, so that they can then pass on that knowledge to the youth that the school is trying to train. So this is also extremely important for us. And lastly, and going really back again to the point that our colleague from Festo, Angora mentioned, this I think that support from training to work. That is also being supported by our private sector partners in terms of the networks that they have with their industry players. And just today we were also discussing earlier, and we were being introduced to one of the clients of Hitachi who is looking for skilled operators, and have mentioned this to Hitachi, which they have now passed on to us, which will now pass on to KVTC, so that the students are able to access these job opportunities. So really that partnership is really, I think we see real benefits coming from this, and the concrete benefits that are coming from this. And I think, there's also, maybe I can also mention a little bit about the results, I think, and because I mentioned about how they're impacting, but to just put some words into it, numbers to this, is that and maybe I will take the example of the meter, which we are cooperating with CEDAR and also with NORTEC and Volvo. And basically, our records right now, about 60% of graduates have found jobs within 6 months of employment, of training. And if we also look at how the employers are satisfied with the graduates, above 90% of employers where students are going to work are satisfied with their skill levels, which then gives us confidence that more students will be placed in the industry, and that and the kind of work that we are doing through NORTEC is actually contributing to the industry, but also to the young people who are looking for jobs.
Sure, I think that's a great statistic for you to share in terms of showing us the results of the collaboration and the fruits that they have yielded. Thank you so much. And at this point, as I said, or as you said, a lot has been said already this afternoon, and we don't want to get into a situation where we start repeating ourselves. Before I do ask the speakers just to share their final thoughts before we break away, are there any final thoughts from yourselves as audience members at this stage? There is. We didn't give you enough time on the panel, Daniel. No. The weather is also quite loud outside.
All right, well,
thank you.
First of all, I'd like to share with my colleagues up front there. We just did a 8-day tour of Guinea's training infrastructures, higher education, TVET, and they're basically saying the same thing. I came from Gabon, same thing. We need to get out of this this vicious cycle. What I see from us operators mining operators, we build our own little silo and we give token money, token equipment to schools around. But until we really get involved, this is going to continue. We have to, this is why what we're proposing in Guinea is to really have a hub where all the stakeholders will work together and be embedded in the training architecture of the country. And then we will always stay in line. I mean, it's easy to say like this, but there's, of course, a lot of complexity behind that. But what I'm saying is that all these resources should be merged and embedded in. Until then, I mean, you know, this is going to be, we'll talk about this in 2 years. Okay. So let's hang in there.
Okay. I'm seeing a lot of nods in the room. Yeah. So it seems that your colleagues in the audience are aligned with what you're saying. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Okay, so there's a few hands. Okay, so I'm only going to take the 3 hands. I'm just being mindful of time. So there's the lady there in the black and white dress, and then there's the gentleman, the 2 gentlemen there at the back.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Ngoma, attending independently. So in the session, and in one of the earlier sessions, it was mentioned there's a double skills gap, the vocational, but also the sustainability. So I know we've touched on and talked about the ESG, but I've heard more about how we're going to address the first skills gap, which is more the mechanical, the engineering. So I wanted to find out, are we thinking about ways of how we are going to build professionals to have ESG competencies, as it were, because somebody like myself has an international trade policy background, but I have strategy and governance. So are companies willing to also have pathways for other professionals, because we need upskilling and reskilling? So are companies like, you know, Mopani, FQM, and even the training centers thinking about how we embed these ESG competencies outside of somebody having studied environmental science from university, and not just graduate as well, mid-professionals, because some people are pivoting as well.
All so, right. I think that's a fantastic question, and I think I'll just ask maybe one representative, either from the private sector or from the TVET training colleges to answer regarding training other individuals. Does anyone want to put their hands up for that? Christopher, I see you jotting down. Let's take that. So we're coming to your question in just a short while.
Okay. Thank you for that question. So ESG is now something that we embed in our actual training. So irrespective of what the discipline is, it's something fundamental to what we do. Also, entrepreneurship, which initially wasn't a particularly high priority when an institution such as ours was training specifically for Mopani, that became a top priority when we opened our doors to the general public. So we now work very closely with TVETA. We also support training of trainers from other TVET institutions. And like you say, it's such a big deal now that you really cannot call yourself a proper training institution unless you're covering those bases. And a company like Mopani does get audited on ESG. And us being a part of that company also get audited on ESG, both in terms of our service delivery and on our environment as well, just basically what we do with the training center. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's kind of where we are at the moment.
I hope it does, and if you do have any follow-ups, I hope you do take the opportunity to engage to the relevant people in the room during the cocktail session, but thank you so much for that. Sir?
Thank you very much. My name is Bertram Salangeta from the Copperbelt University. So I think it's just an addition. From the first set of presenters till now, what I've observed is all of them are talking about the collaboration of all stakeholders that are involved. And if we talk about the environment, we're not just talking about the climate affected part, but it all leads to that if people in the environment and the people in the industries are not in one accord. One of the presenters said TVET's institutions are considered as side hustles if one fails to go to a university. Well, bring the people together. One thing that differentiates people from animals is the sense of belonging, and that's what you cannot take from them. So if the organizations or the private sectors are going to be taking people from the skill centers, the colleges, they're supposed to mix them. They're supposed to mix them so that they have the sense of belonging, that everything that they are learning is one. And as we have the CBU challenge, I also want to challenge all of us here that 5 factorial minus 20 of what has been talked in here is supposed to be implemented, because this is a gathering which has been represented by all the people from the industries that are affected and all the stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you. I will allow you to do so right now.
Thank you. I just asked to comment on that because it's something that's very important and something that's very close to my heart. We've been talking about the challenge of the caliber of the TVET graduates as they go into industry being, something questionable. We have also spoken about the challenges that the TVET institutions face just in terms of equipment, etc. I think what you're talking about, is a very big issue, which I think Antonio touched on, which is the need for a holistic look at the entire education system within the country. Because we have seen a spiraling downwards of the caliber of students that we take in to the TVET institutions, meaning there's a lot of heavy lifting before we can get them to that base where we can now take them through what was supposed to be, the start point. So I think what you're talking about deserves a sort of national level. Let's get together and talk about Zambia, the entire education system, what's going to be our 50-year development plan, never mind 5 or 10. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do think that we have got the qualified individuals in this room to lead that initiative, be it in your own capacities or in your proximity to the capacities of those in power. We're looking at you. We'll just take the final question there from the gentleman at the back.
Thank you once again. I just want to say thank you to Mr. Kasonso and Mr. Kakoma for the work that you're doing with your institutions. I have maybe just 2 questions or 3 questions.
No, just the other questions we'll ask in the networking session.
Right.
Just one, sir, if you can.
Okay. 2. Okay. Okay. One is for Chie. Chie, I want to ask, out of interest, I know Mildred mentioned something about the struggle that we face in trying to create a relationship between institutions, maybe for example like NORTEC and industry. What are some of the best practices you can share with us to best develop such PPDPs? That's the first question. My last question is for, I think, everyone there. I'm very interested to find out, in terms of shifting the power from the global north to institutions like NORTEC, where Zamita, for example, or the KVTC project is taking place, there's a point at which the stakeholders have agreed to say, at this point, we're going to step out and we're going to allow you to run this program. So what are some of the plans or some of the initiatives you put in place to sustain these projects as we go along after these partnerships are disbanded?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so
Chie?
yep, I can
Best
take
practice?
the first question. Yes. So I think first of all, I think it's first to start communicating, and I think a forum like this is a very great opportunity for us to actually exchange ideas and share like what kind of challenges we may all be facing, and to see what's possible in terms of concrete things that we can do together. So I really invite you also to discuss, and I think there is a networking session after this, so I think the conversation will continue after this. And I think some things that I've appreciated a lot in these PPDPs is this, like, I think, openness and flexibility to, like, and will to listen. I think, first of all, listen to each other and be flexible and open to co-creating a solution together. And also trying to do the actual legwork to actually make ideas into a reality. And so I think in the partnership projects that I've worked with, I think I've been very lucky myself and also my UNIDO colleagues in finding these partners who are willing to do, who have that commitment and are willing to do the legwork and, investing in good, honest and, candid communication that is needed in order to build that trust and to work together.
Okay.
So yes, I am there. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. And you'll get a fuller answer in the cocktail session. Martin, do you want to comment the shift in power dynamics, sustainability thereof for institutions such as the one that you represent?
Correct. Yes, the issue of sustainability is very, very important. That after the PPDP is over, the project is done, now what next? What we've been able to do at NORTEC is that the project over the years that it has been running, our workshop have been, capacitated in terms of the equipment that has been installed, that we can actually run workshops as production units, if you like, whereby private individuals can bring in their vehicles for repair. We can also outsource our expertise to private industries that may need our expertise in terms of repair, in terms of maintenance. So the issue of sustainability is well embedded, I think, in the project, that we're able to stand on our own even after this project is done. The phase 2, which is coming to an end officially maybe this year, but with an extension to next year, we are seeing a workshop being built up in the automotive section. And there we're going to have commercial vehicles driving in, being serviced by NORTEC graduates, by NORTEC lecturers. So that will help in sustainability of the quality that the PPD has brought in as well.
Okay.
But also let me mention that one of the key areas that we normally are not talking about is the issue of even financing the students themselves who come to these institutions.
Okay.
I want to reflect on what one of the earlier speakers talked about, I think Dr. Olomo, when he was talking about Africa having this huge population of youths and creating, I think, a very large labor market for the young people that are going to, have these skills that the world will need. And Zambia is no exception. Already Zambia, we are graduating about maybe 300,000 plus school leavers. And, but when you look at the number of colleges that we have, there are very few. In the TVET sector, maybe annually we're graduating about 12,000 students. So now when you look at the difference between 12,000 and 300,000, that's a huge gap. So here's an opportunity that we really need to harness. And so what is it that we're doing? And we're glad that the current government is providing these bursaries, this financing for these skills. So again, that creates, I think, another opportunity of sustainability for us in the sense that we are mandated for training. That's our core business. First of all is to train. Other things come later, but core business is to train.
Okay.
So it means that now, if our youths are well financed, then the institution also will do well because that financing will come into the institution. The institution will have the right equipment, will be able to have right trained staff who are, you talked about well-trained staff, but how are you able to retain them? You need to pay them well. So unless the students themselves are able to bring in their financing, they're well sponsored by government, by private sector, and all other sponsors around, then the institution will have enough financing to be able to sustain the level of quality that everyone wants to see in these institutions.
Okay, so apologies to rush you. I don't attempt to minimize the importance of what you're saying. In fact, you didn't get a card. So maybe after this, I'm going to give you a card and to provide that feedback. It's a really critical point around financing. We have run out of time, and I think that it would also be remiss just to not hear for one last time, however, from our other speakers. Charlotte, we haven't forgotten you, ma'am. Perhaps if you can just in a minute also just give us your final thoughts on this topic. Again, sorry to cut you with time, but it has run away from us. That's a message to Charlotte, to Ulf, as well as Crispian. Just I'll steal 3 minutes more from this program just to hear you help us wrap things up. Charlotte, beginning with you.
Okay, thanks a lot. So I will summarize the key roles. I think that cooperation partners, but not only cooperation partners, also other stakeholders have when it comes to skills development and fostering partnerships for growth. So first, making sure skills development lead to employment. Enable is the lead agency of a Team Europe initiative around opportunity-driven skills embed. That really promotes skills development around the needs of the private sector and opportunities of the market in all sub-Saharan Africa around global gateway priorities, including critical raw materials. And so we cannot do this alone. It requires collaboration between agencies. So Enable is very happy to work with GIZ, Edufi, and Expertise France, and look across borders as well. Our solutions in this project offer funding, technical assistance, and exchange to promote public-private partnerships, as we know is very important. And as to another example, in the DRC, Enable also really promotes structural dialogue between the public and private partners to adapt skilling development offers really with the concrete needs, as we saw someone mentioning that these go exponential while sometimes training offers go more in a linear way.
All right.
And then finally, our role when it comes to decent working conditions, social and environmental protection. I think Enable has a regional decent work program in the Great Lake regions. And there we need to work together with different kind of partners, public partners, inspection and labor unions to provide training, and specifically also in the artisanal mining sector in Congo. And finally, it's working together. So more and more development cooperation is looking across borders, across sectors, and across different partners to rethink solutions together, which is needed in these critical times.
All right. Charlotte, thank you so much. And thank you for trying to summarize that in a really short...
Yeah, difficult.
Very difficult. I know a minute is very difficult to stick to when you have a lot to say. Ulf and Crispian, final thoughts from you two, sirs.
Thank you once more, Madam Moderator. I think for me, I think what is key in the whole setup is that I think collaboration is very important. We need to collaborate, and we need not to leave out the private sector as well as other stakeholders in the training equation. I think as training providers, us alone, we cannot give you a fully baked graduate as you may demand, just because I think it all works like the way a synchronous motor works. I think those of you who have done electrical, it will always try to catch up. The dog is laughing. Yeah.
So collaboration, sir.
Yes. You to always try to catch up, but you do never catch up.
Sure.
And that's the more reason why you have that motion. Yeah. So therefore, I think with those few remarks, I think that is what I can.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And Ulf will give you the last word, sir.
Okay, thank you. I was thinking about saying something else, but I changed my mind. I think when we spoke about sustainability, and I think when it comes to operational and financial sustainability, you need to have a plan, sustainable plan, when you start a project, because, I mean, at the moment we enjoy supporting these kinds of initiatives, PPTP programs, TV programs, just because our government says this is what you're supposed to be doing. But governments come and go, policies change, and you never know what happens. We have 5-year plans when we do our planning for support. So build in the sustainability plans at the beginning of each project, where I'm sure you do that, but you have to don't wait till 9 months before completion. So don't do it from the start, because you never know whether we are there in 3 or 4 years. Sometimes we spend 20 years or 10 years supporting a sector. We have training institutes here. They were supported since 1988, but you can't rely on that. You have to, and this is something that a message that I give both to the public and private parties of the PPDP programs.
Okay, thank you so much. I think in essence what you're saying is that sustainability needs to be part of the DNA. It can't be something that you tattoo on, or if you even have the ink after. It needs to be at the core. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll leave the conversation there for now, but I do have confidence that it will continue when we get out this room. But for now, can I invite you to take up your seats once again with the audience? And thank you so much, Charlotte. Hopefully next time you can be with us here in person.
Yes, for sure. For sure, I will be there.